Hi guys, and welcome back to another Big Al's Bouncer videos, or whatever the playlist is called. It's been a while since I've added on to here. Now, this series of mine has been by far the most popular, and I get a lot of requests, not just on YouTube, but through Instagram, so on and so forth, and personal requests, personal messages and that, saying, oh, can you do another, Bouncer or Dorman video? They're really entertaining, really informative, whatever the praise might be. Also, I get a lot of slack from it as well. I do get a lot of trolls saying that I'm a shit doorman and that I wouldn't survive in their area and all the rest of it. And I'll be doing a video in response to my thoughts on that at another time. But this video is really, the most sort of relevant at this point in time, I feel, and that is the reasons why I left the security industry, why I no longer do door work, or at least on a full-time basis like I used to. Some of the guys watching the videos may not know that, but I haven't done doors for a few years, and obviously that's why I can only put so many doorman videos on here, because I'm not constantly adding to the stories, or gaining new stories to tell you guys by being on the doors. I'm not getting new experiences. All I'm doing is recollecting things that has happened in the past. And don't get me wrong, guys, there's plenty of stories still left to tell. My memory's not the best best, and suddenly it'll just pop in my head. Oh yeah, I remember that. And if I've got a camera nearby, I'll put it down. And I do it for myself as much as anything else, because I don't have the best memory. I do have amnesia from a car crash that I went through and stuff. So for me, this is almost like a video diary of my own life. So I can go on here and remember things, and keep myself up to date on things. I like to think in a few years' time that I'll be able to watch these and go, oh yeah, okay, I'm glad I recorded that, because I would never have remembered it, and memory fades over time as well. So I do apologise, guys, that this isn't a story video, so to speak, of this fight or that fight, or what I thought of what it's like to be a doorman with gills and all the rest of it. And I'll be doing perhaps additional videos on touching on those topics again, even if I've already covered them, because I feel there's always more to add. And as I said, there are more stories still to tell that I've simply forgotten to bring up, or didn't think they were relevant at the time to say. But this video, as I say, is my reasons why I'm no longer in the security industry. Why I no longer work as a doorman. And the reason I say it is because I feel it's a lot of my videos are sort of directed at people who are pre-doorman, who are wanting to apply for an SIA license, or who have the idea of becoming a doorman and they're not sure whether it's worth doing it, or they've just begun and they just want to see what it's like a few years down the line once they've done it for a little while, and that whether it's going to stay the same as how they've got it, or what kind of places are like. Different places are like, say, if you do security work for a shopping mall, for example, you think, oh, maybe I do want to work for a nightclub or bar or something. Then obviously you watch my videos, because I tell you what it's like to work some of the nightclubs and some of the pubs and some of the rougher places. But as I say, my reasons for leaving might be useful for you to see how, things can evolve over many years, and how things might be for you. They might be different. Hopefully they are. Well, I'm not saying hopefully they are, because I've had a good time when I used to do the doors. I've got nothing really but good memories, and I left for valid reasons. And, there was a part of me, very much, that would like to go back and do door work, as sort of as a part-time thing. Just, one, it'd be a little bit of extra money, and that never is, that's never, you can never turn your nose up to a little extra earner, because you never know when your next earner is going to be, right? It's always nice to get ahead. You've got to pay those bills, they're relentless, so to speak. But also on top of that, it is an exciting job. And I think that's what attracts a lot of, and I'll say young men, because it's predominantly male, and there are a few female doormen, but I feel for the men involved, at least anyway, as I say, it's the majority of at least doormen, not maybe secure, well, yeah, still majority of security people are still men. There's a few security females, but the majority of doormen are men. And that's just a fact. It's not being sexist or anything like that. It's just, it's a physical job, and there are very few women out there that can overpower an average woman can't overpower an average man just because physically men are stronger than women. But then again, there are some women out there, and I've seen a few who are fucking beasts and could beat the shit out of me, you know. But odds, you know, numbers wise, generally speaking, it is more of a man's job than it is a job done by women. And I think the initial attraction, especially for the adolescents, teenagers who are thinking of joining the security job, is, you know, obviously the excitement side of it, the fighting, the women, potentially the drugs, if, you know, that's your scene and all that. But the reality of it is, even though they're the reasons perhaps to be attracted to the job to start off with, there in many ways they are the reasons why you leave the job at a later date if you decide to leave that world behind, because obviously you mature out of it, and that's not by any means being patronising to the younger or the inexperienced at that point, you know, or I don't want to sound patronising, but the naivety of youth and all that. I'm not patronising in any way whatsoever. You've got to live your life. You've got to do it, and you might stay in it because it is, as I say, an exciting life. But for me, it became one of the primary reasons to leave. Now, I did doors for about 4.5, 5 years. So yeah, long enough, but not massively long time either. But I did do it full time. You know, weekdays and weekends. So I was a full-time doorman, and I was from the very beginning. I was lucky. I got work straight away. So that there was no time sort of transitioning, doing just like the odd day here and there or the odd job here and there. I went straight into it, and I've done a variety of different work, from sort of, you know, working for random guys who knew me in the gym, just saying, "Oh, I've got a job. Do you want to come down with me?" To working regular on a particular door every weekend, doing the same door every weekend. And I've done gigs, you know, music gigs, and I've done nightclubs, I've done bars and and pubs and stuff, but primarily pubs was my scene. And I've done, you know, I've done some nice venues. Not often. The nicer venues, I must admit, it might sound strange, but were the strip clubs. The strip clubs are the nicer venues because you tend not to get quite as much trouble there. Some people think, you think that you're going to get more trouble, you know, in a strip club, but generally speaking, the guys are just there for the women. You know, they're not there to get drunk. They're not there to take drugs, and it's the alcohol and the drugs that tend to cause the trouble, because you've got to bear in mind that everyone who comes to your pub or your nightclub or anything along those lines, right, they're there just to have a good time. And in normal everyday life, if you were to pass them in the street, they'd probably be half decent people, and you'd get on fairly well, or at least you'll be able to say hi or whatever, and they're not going to be arseholes. But as soon as they get that demon drink in them, as my Welsh background calls it, the demon drink, the alcohol, once they get the alcohol in them, and especially once they get the drugs up their nose, especially cocaine and things, cocaine's the worst of all the drugs, then for the security side of things, being on the receiving end of a cokehead, then obviously, you know, certainly in England anyway, you know, I don't know what it's like going up against people with on crystal meth, and my Angel just seems the worst fucking shit. But luckily PCP is a rare drug over here. But I've never seen it in use. I've never seen anyone on it, not knowingly anyway. I wouldn't want to. They look like beasts when they're on that shit. But fucking, what do you do with them? I don't know. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. You know, I find that, you know, it's the drug and the alcohol, as I say, that turns nice people into arseholes. And sometimes it can be, obviously, that they're fighting over their girlfriends, like a guy touches up another guy's woman or whatever. Okay, I can actually say that's a valid reason to fucking kick off, you know. I would kick off over such a thing. But to some degree, that you can almost negotiate with them, talk with them, work with them. Come on, mate, and you drag them off. You're not actually getting into a fist fight, but you find yourself more often than not, when you're having to get into a fist fight with people, it's the people who are on the drugs and the alcohol. And as I say, generally speaking, that wouldn't happen during the day. It only happens, well, because of what they're on at night time, and they feel like because it's in a nightclub or bar or pub or whatever, it's almost a more acceptable thing. It's something that is kind of cool. It's something that's kind of socially more acceptable to do. Obviously, kicking off in the street for no reason is just, madman. But in a pub, it's a bit different. It's just part and parcel of being, a bloke or whatever. And I wouldn't say a bloke in this case because I've had plenty of females kick off. And this is where, when I was saying about doormen typically are men. Again, not a sexist comment in any way whatsoever. But those who kick off, I would actually say there's an equal split between men and women. Men and women, women, as I've said in previous videos, they kick off like no one's business. They can be really rough, really vicious. And that's what I'd say. They're more vicious than men. They're more vicious than men, and they're a little harder to handle in many respects because being a bloke, one, I'm 2-3 times the size of the average female, or most females who have gone up against me, and you don't want to hurt them. I wouldn't want to hurt a bloke that size, not alone a woman, and you don't want to slap them, So you're restricted in your tools of attack, so to speak, and they've got plenty of options on how to hurt you because they as I say, they have a much more vicious mind than the average man. The average woman knows how to hurt a man, and I'm not talking about kicking in the balls. They're vicious. They're vicious overall. But again, I find myself transgressing from this particular topic, which is why I left the doors. I mean, as I say, I was on the doors for a long time. I did the rough doors because that was what I chose to do. But I left. In my head, there are two reasons I left. The reason that I had in my head when I left doing doors, when I left doing the doors, and the reason I have in my head now, which is the real reason, several years after having left the doors. Now, there is a difference. It sounds complicated, but it's not. When I left the doors, I left it because I thought that I was being twisted in the head a little bit by what I was doing. I was, as I say, handling the really nasty rough doors a lot of the time, and because over the years that I was in it, I had obviously banged out quite a few people in self-defense, obviously, and I'd taken quite a few bangs in return, as is the nature of the job and nature of having to fight to defend yourself and the property that you've been paid to defend. Sometimes you take it as well as give it, and eventually, when you take a couple of punches too many, you start to think, well, fuck it, shoot first, ask questions later, so to speak, metaphorically. You think, fuck it, I ain't going to be nice to these people, fuck it. I ain't going to ask them politely to back off, because when I've been polite and well-mannered, I've got a slap in the face, and then I've had to slap them back and fucking slam them into the ground or whatever, and it's turned into a fucking melee, fucking medieval battlefield, fuck it, I might as well just knock them out here and just drag them out without even asking them or explaining the situation, because they look like arseholes. And it's the wrong way to be. I mean, in some ways, you've got to be like that with some people. You do have to strike first. And that's it in some ways, and I don't condone it in any way whatsoever, that side of things, because I left for that reason. I didn't want to be in a position where, I suppose, fear, if anything else, or sheer frustration of not wanting to get hurt anymore. You start thinking those thoughts, and I didn't want those thoughts to become actions. So I decided that I didn't want to get even more violent, especially, as I say, having been in the doors, you go from the doors that were hard to start off with, and I ended up doing even harder doors because I was known as being reliable, known as being able to handle myself, being able to put down, guys who were causing trouble. I'd be put on doors with my head doorman and that, because they knew that say you go to a pub that was particularly known for being violent, that the pub landlord himself was actually scared of the customers, and the customers almost owned the pub, the establishment, and they ruled it, without paying the bills. What they said the landlord had to kind of abide by, because he was afraid of the people coming in. So he'd hire myself and my head doorman, who in turn hired me, self-employed and all the rest of it. They would do this, and then they would employ the pair of us and the team that we were part of, to clear the doors, essentially, to remove the arseholes and convert the pub in from what would be the arsehole of the city, to, being a half decent place where normal people can go and drink, and even families ultimately, and we turn it into a nice pub. But if you want to make an omelette, sometimes you have to crack eggs, and so as a result, as I say, over the years you start getting a reputation of being able to do this kind of stuff. You get more and more involved in the more violent doors, and consequently, it is more of a valid response just to strike and say fuck you, rather than going, excuse me, sir, you need to leave now. Being polite about it. Fuck it, bang. Or whatever the response is, the answer at the time that was inferior appropriate. Whatever. And I didn't want that. I got sick of it in the end. I got sick of it, and so I thought, I don't want this. I don't want this violence, especially for the money. It was fuck all money, fuck all money, really, when you look at it. And so that's one reason why I started to make more my day job. I was looking for work in normal work, getting a day job, proper day job and stuff. Partly that, and partly because at the time I was in a serious relationship, and even though the girl at the time had no problem with me doing what I was doing, I knew that in the back of my head they were probably worried that I would not come home one day, or that the times that I came with blood, my own blood, pouring out my face or whatever, that was distressing and upsetting to them, because no one wants to see their loved one hurt. And also I thought that, at the end of the day, one of the things about being a doorman is that you are surrounded by women, drunk women who, a proportion of which are, they like doormen. They like people who, or the authority figures of that time or place or whatever. Especially when you're in the strip clubs, obviously you're surrounded by naked women. And even though I'm, more than trustworthy, I've never cheated in my life, and I've never given reason to doubt myself to any of the, my companions over time. Obviously, I know that, again, that would perhaps be a worry in the back of the head of your partner at the time. So I wanted to remove those worries from her, and I wanted myself to remove this degradation of this circle of violence, so to speak, and so that's why I, at the time, left, and it was a primary reason of why I left. But looking back at it, with hindsight, and more wisdom and age and tiredness, I look back at it and I see it's money. Everyone's always motivated by their pocket, money. That's it, really. Doors don't really pay that great. They can pay well, well, not well, but they can pay better if you play it smart. If you do get yourself into, like say a strip club that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you've got the easy shifts, and you get there for you're fairly established, and you get a bit of a better wage than the standard wage, and or you work for a private members club or something, or you actually create your own sort of little small security business with, say you outsource work to 3 or 4 doormen at least, and you take a percentage of their wages on top of your own, then the money can get okay. It's still not fantastic, not unless you do particularly well at, setting up your own business or something. But that takes a lot of effort, and not everyone succeeds at that, and that takes a lot of time as well. Indoors, in any other industry, and no, it's not every other industry, but in some industries you can just create a business and kind of make something, at least a livable income on it fairly quickly, certainly within a year, Within 12 months, you can have grasped the industry well enough to try and create at least some income. But the door work, it's a bit more cliquey, because your resource is not only your own skills, but other skilled individuals. And so if you wanted to create a business in the security business, you need to have guys that you can rely on, guys that will go to work that you've told them to do, and they're good at the job as well, because if they shit at the job, it reflects poorly on you. And so it's to do that, you need to be in the business for X number of years. You need to network, you need to know people, and you need to be careful not to step on people's toes, because doors, well, they've already got their security teams, and the only way you're going to get a job is by undercutting them in one way or another, either by just charging cheaper than what their guys are doing, or offering better service for the same price at the very least. And that can be very, very hard to do. And the problem is, a lot of doormen, the guys who control the teams, they're more old-fashioned, they're more old school. I was under an old school team, and they don't like the territory being taken, so to speak, and they don't go very easily. It's not like where you're sacked, go find some other work. It's, well, you're sacked, but I don't care, I'm staying. And if you don't like it, well, I ain't letting any of your customers in, kind of thing, So, it's a different kind of world in that respect. It's a bit of different business. It's a little old-fashioned in that way. It's changing, but it's my last experiences of it were more like that. So it was harder to set up a future within it, which was a consideration for myself. I did think I'd create my own security business. Maybe I will in the future, who knows. But I'm a little out of touch now with the kind of people who I would employ. But you never know, it's a potential possibility. But more likely, as I say, looking back at it, the reason why I really did leave the doors was, that was a big consideration, the violence of it and all that. But the main thing was because it just didn't pay enough. And it didn't pay enough for what you're doing. I mean, it paid better than some jobs out there, but those jobs paid overtime. Door work, I've never known pay overtime. I mean, it's different. If you're working for a big company, and you're getting your £7.50 an hour, whatever it is, and then if you do over 12 hours, then you get like £9. I don't know. They start paying you more. Fine, okay. But I was self-employed, so I typically worked around the £10 an hour mark as a minimum wage. But I had my expenses that I had to pay for on that, because I was self-employed, and all that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, I wouldn't want to work for a big company because the wages were smaller, right? And the jobs were more boring. But there's no real way around it. You couldn't really go for, as I say, working for a big business and then, I don't know, as I said, there were just, in the end, it became obvious that there were other jobs that perhaps were a little bit more boring, but they paid similar wages for easy work. And so it became an obvious choice in the end, or for better shifts, where you're not working from 8 o'clock at night to 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Bit of a weird shift to do, especially when you've got as I say, you're in a relationship at the time and stuff. You actually want to see who you're going out with, right? Otherwise, it can be a little bit on the difficult side, because if you're asleep during the day and working at night, it makes it a bit hard, because they're awake during the day, might be at work or whatever, but they're asleep at night, and this makes things hard. So there was things to juggle around, and so really that's why I left doors. And I think in some ways the money will be the primary motivation for most people leaving the security industry. It hasn't improved in time, and my point is if you looked back at people of my father's generation, roughly 30 years ago, they were making the same £10 an hour as what most doormen, or sort of most certainly self-employed doormen, make now. £10 an hour. They were making the same 30 years ago. With inflation, that ain't right. It should be a lot more. On top of that, they didn't have to pay for licenses. They didn't have to go pay for the training, and everything like that. So the job has deteriorated over long before I got into it. But it, in my opinion, it continued to deteriorate. And so just the brutal honesty of it. Now, it's still a job. And it's still a good job. There are harder jobs. I did harder jobs before. I did door work, such as loading lorries and that. Trust me, I would do door work any day before that, what I considered hard labour. Trust me, there are far worse jobs out there to go. And if it's the only job you've got, then it's a job. Fuck it, shut up and take the money. You know what I mean? But if, eventually as you get older, you start to get more experienced. You start to understand certain qualifications you might have, or certain life circumstances change, and you get more opportunities, and it's your choice whether you take them or not, if you are lucky enough to get them. And I decided I wanted other things in the end, and so really, guys, that's just again a little bit more insight into the reality of being a doorman. I've spoken a little bit there on a couple of topics that I'd like to expand upon a little bit more. Maybe the drug scene a little bit more again. The drugs that I hate. I have done a video on that, but maybe an updated video would be nice. But if there's any particular topic, general topics, not asking for specific stories as such, that you guys want, then please ask me, and that might jog my memory on things that I've been through in the past, and I'd love to discuss it with you guys. Right, nice one. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.